People often ask me what wines they should order off a particular wine list at destination restaurants such as the French Laundry. I'm considering another trip to Napa Valley in the not too distant future. I thought it would be a useful exercise for me to go through my thought process and walk you through how I would approach the wine list. So that's what I'm doing in this video. I understand that budgets vary greatly, and so I'm going to consider the French Laundry wine list from 3 different perspectives. The first perspective is that of the person or couple looking for the most cost-effective solution possible. This is the very situation I was in during my first trip to Napa Valley when I dined at French Laundry, but it was a struggle to do so. The second perspective is that of the couple who's willing to spend up to $500 per person to splurge on some memorable wines to celebrate a special occasion. The third and final perspective that I'll consider is what I would do if money was no object, such as if I was a billionaire or if I had a limited time horizon and no heirs. For those people, as well as those people who like to see some of the really cool wines that are available on the list, I'm going to identify some of the wines that I would consider ordering if I was fortunate enough to be in that position. And be sure to stick around to the end, because I'm also going to be discussing how I would utilize the BYO option if I were dining at the French Laundry. Those who want to choose the most cost-effective option for dining at the French Laundry will want to take that approach into account even when you place your dining reservation. This is so because the charge for dinner varies depending on where you sit. For the most cost-effective approach, you'll want to choose the regular dining room, which is $350 per person. Please note, however, that there are some upcharges that you could experience when you're at the restaurant. And so for purposes of this approach, I'm going to assume that you will decline all upcharges, such as the $135 supplement if you get the Wagyu rather than the lamb. With respect to the wine spend, my objective is to keep the budget at $150 per person, such that there would be $500 per person spent, or no more than $1,000 per couple. When dining at the French Laundry, you're going to have a number of courses, and so we're going to need to have some wines that pair with those courses. I'm not going to be too much of a stickler for those pairings, but I am going to identify some wines that will be pretty versatile and pair with some of the courses on the standard menu. So I'm going to recommend at least 3 wines for you. One is going to be a champagne, the next will be a white, and then a red. One of the best things about the French Laundry wine list is that they have an extensive collection of half bottles. These half bottles are great, both because you can get a better selection of wines to order than if you were just limited to the by the glass list, and also because if you split the bottle, you'll end up each getting a little bit more than you would if you ordered 2 glasses of wine. So the first selection is a champagne that sells for $95 for half a bottle. Specifically, I'm talking about the A. Margon Le Brut champagne. One of the things I particularly like about this producer is that he often suppresses or limits malolactic fermentation, which helps to preserve high acidity and also maintains freshness and vibrancy of some of the fruit in the wine. I think this will be an excellent way to start things off. The second wine recommendation I have for you is a white Burgundy that's on the by the glass list for $55 a glass. Specifically, I'm talking about the Buisson, Bateau, Meursault Old Vines. The vines used to produce the fruit for this wine average at least 85 years of age. It's a village wine, but some of the fruit is about as good as you could possibly get for a village wine in Meursault. Also, taking a look at the menu, this wine would pair perfectly with several of the courses, including the yellowtail, the lobster, and even the bread and butter. The next wine for the cost-effective approach is the red wine, and I found a great wine that will pair perfectly with the lamb course for $35 a glass. Specifically, I'm talking about the Retro Syrah, which is from Howell Mountain in Napa Valley. This is a wine that's made in the Northern Rhone style. It has lots of red and black fruit and mixed spice. Of course, lamb pairs perfectly with Syrah, and we definitely need an option from Napa Valley as part of this experience. So I think this wine is the perfect choice. So at this point, if you tally things up, we're at $137.50 for wine per person. That means you have at least $10 left, and if you're so inclined, you could get a dessert wine. Specifically, you could get the Vietti Mosco d'Asti from Piedmont, which is only $10. This wine would pair well with some of the dessert courses that you get, because you do get a barrage of desserts at the French Laundry. So now that we've completed the most cost-effective approach to ordering wine at the French Laundry, we're going to consider the approach if you're willing to spend $500 per person or up to about $1,000 per couple. Once again, we're going to be starting with a champagne, namely the 2008 Pierre Paillard The Great Harvest. This wine is on the list for $335, which is only about a 3 times markup from what you'd find at retail. Compared to some of the other champagnes on the French Laundry list, this is not bad at all. Many of the markups are 4 times, if not greater. So this is definitely a relative value. It's also very high quality and one that I think you'll enjoy. This wine was just disgorged in January of 2020, so it's been a long time on the lees, developing tertiary descriptors in complexity, and it has a lot of those autolytic notes, such as bread dough and brioche, that I enjoy so well with champagne. The fruit for this champagne comes from 2 very old vine vineyards in the boozy Grand Cru area. So a very impressive bottle and a tremendous way to get things started. For those willing to spend about $500 per person or $1,000 per couple, the white wine that I would recommend is the 2016 Remaiuri Rioja. Remaiuri's white wine is incredibly special. This is a wine that I just discovered on my trip to Spain a couple months ago. It impressed me immensely. This wine is a blend of 9 different grapes that are farmed organically and grown in vineyards that are at the highest point in Rioja, about 800 meters above sea level. Once harvested, these grapes are fermented in a variety of different vessels and then aged for about 20 months. So they develop tremendous complexity and texture. The current release for this wine sells for a manufacturer's suggested retail price of around $110. And so for the 2016 vintage to sell for $250 is an extraordinary value and one that I highly recommend. This wine is made in very, very limited quantities and is extremely hard to come by. So I was actually quite surprised to see it on the list and hope that it's still there when I make it to the French Laundry in a couple months. If you're interested in wine recommendations, wine collecting strategies, and learning more about wine, please do subscribe to my channel. I've been collecting wine for more than 15 years and also have a level 4 diploma from the WSET. So I have both formal certification as well as substantial practical knowledge from the School of Hard Knocks. Once again, the red wine option comes from Napa Valley, namely the CV Merlot from the outstanding 2007 vintage. This is a very high quality producer, and the winemaking team includes well-known winemaker Philippe Melka. This wine is 75% Merlot and 25% Cabernet Sauvignon, so it should definitely stand up to the lamb. So I think this would be an excellent choice. So far, we spent $955 under option 2. For many of you, this may be enough wine, and so you could keep the $45 in your pocket. But for those of you who wish to go on, I'm also going to identify some dessert wine for you to pair with a barrage of dessert courses that you'll soon be receiving at your table. We're going to start with a 2006 Fritz Haag Auslese. This wine sells by the glass for $35. Now you still have $10 left over, so you can also get the $10 glass of the Vietti Moscato d'Asti from Piedmont. This will result in a spend of $1,000 total. I think these would be an excellent way to finish, and since you have a wide variety of dessert courses, it will help to have 2 different styles of dessert wine to pair with them. Next, I'm going to identify some of the truly special bottles on the list that I would consider ordering if money was no object. But please be sure to stick around, because after that, I'm going to be providing my advice concerning how I would utilize the $200 BYO option if I chose to bring wine to the French Laundry. So if money was no object, which wines would I consider? Well, starting again with the champagne, I would have to choose the 1976 CELLAR. CELLAR is one of my all-time favorite champagnes, and the 1976 vintage is certainly one of my vintages for champagne as well. But you need a very deep pocket to consider this wine, as it sells for $8,500. Billionaire Burgundy lovers would have to consider a Domaine de la Romanée-Conti when dining at the French Laundry, and I would recommend the 2009 Domaine de la Romanée-Conti Romanée-Conti, which sells for $25,000. The 1990 version of this wine is my favorite wine of all time, and so certainly this 2009 is very promising as well. If you're a billionaire who prefers Bordeaux to Burgundy, you may wish to consider the 1982 Chateau Petrus, which also sells for $25,000. But if you're looking for something with a little more age on it, you may want to consider the 1945 Chateau Margaux, which sells for only $12,500. If you're looking to splurge on a Napa wine, you could always choose one of the Screaming Eagles. However, my selection would be the 1994 Harlan Estate. This is a wine that I actually prefer to the 100-point 1997 Harlan Estate. 1994 is definitely one of my favorite vintages of Napa, and this wine is actually about the same price as the 2018 Harlan Estate. So this sells for around $4,800, whereas the 2018 is only a few $100s less than that. And of course, to finish this meal properly, you need a dessert wine. And I would recommend the 1928 Chateau d'Yquem, which sells for $13,500. but this is one of the best Chateau d'Yquem vintages, certainly of the past 100 years or so. Now, as promised, I'm going to discuss my thoughts regarding the corkage policy at the French Laundry and whether or not I would utilize it. Of course, you first have to understand what the policy is, and specifically, it's $200 a bottle for corkage, and there's a maximum of one 750 milliliter bottle for 2 people. It's also important to be mindful of whether or not you're going to utilize the corkage policy when you place your dining reservation, because you're not able to utilize the corkage policy if you sit either in the private dining room or in the boardroom, both of which cost $500 per person for dinner. They actually penalize you for eating in the boardroom or the private dining room. Even though you're paying $150 more per person, you're ineligible to use corkage. Initially, my reaction was that $200 for corkage was absolutely insane and that there was no way I would even consider it. However, after studying the list and seeing some of the prices that they charge for some of the wines that I might like to order, I began having second thoughts, and now I actually think that it's a very good idea to utilize this corkage policy. That is, at least for those of you who are considering bringing a special wine for the dinner. If you have lots of special wine in your collection, then $200 is certainly money well spent when compared to spending thousands of dollars on a very special bottle of wine. This is especially true for those of you who want a special bottle of Napa Cabernet or of Bordeaux. Some of the most high-end Napa Valley bottlings are extremely expensive, and the markups are several times more than what I would expect. For example, it's impossible to get a bottle of Dominus for less than $1,000 at the French Laundry. Likewise, you can't get a Colgan for less than $2,000, and even a half bottle of 2018 Harlan will set you back $2,195. If you're a Bordeaux fan who wants to bring a special bottle of Bordeaux to the French Laundry, I also highly recommend that you take advantage of the corkage policy. One of the things that I like best about producers such as Chateau Pontet Canet is that they're known for making extremely high quality wine that sell for very fair prices. Unfortunately, on the French Laundry wine list, the prices for these wines are not so fair, in my opinion. For example, the 2005 Chateau Pontet Canet I found online for $115 per bottle if you buy a case. Unfortunately, on the French Laundry wine list, that same bottle sells for $1,130. In other words, a 10x premium for that bottle of wine. For those of you who are interested in wine collecting, please be sure to check out my video on 12 wine collecting strategies, which is linked in the description below.